My sister didn't just steal my fiancé. She paraded him around at family dinners while I watched my life crumble. But when I discovered her celebrity obsession ran so deep she had a shrine in her closet, I knew exactly how to get the ultimate revenge. Want to know how I turned her biggest fantasy into my wedding day reality and forced her to watch it all happen? I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. I'm Jessica Wilson, and 3 years ago, I thought I had everything figured out. At 27, I was living in Portland with my fiancé, Derek Matthews, planning a summer wedding that was supposed to be the start of our forever. We'd been together since college, one of those couples everyone called goals on social media. Derek was a software engineer at a tech startup. I worked as a marketing coordinator for a boutique agency, and we'd just put a down payment on a cute craftsman house in the Hawthorne district. My younger sister Vanessa was 24 then, fresh out of grad school and crashing in our guest room while she looked for jobs in Portland. She'd always been the golden child in our family, gorgeous, charismatic, the type of person who could walk into a room and instantly become its center. Growing up in Sacramento, I'd watched her win every talent show, date the quarterback, get voted prom queen. I was the responsible older sister, the one who got good grades and followed the rules while Vanessa collected admirers like baseball cards. But I didn't mind. I loved my sister, and honestly, I felt like I'd won in the end. Derek was smart, stable, and genuinely kind. He wasn't flashy, but he was mine, and that felt like enough. The first time I noticed something off was during a Sunday brunch at our place. I'd made my signature lemon ricotta pancakes, and Derek was telling Vanessa about a project at work. Nothing unusual except I caught her laughing at his jokes a beat too long, touching his arm when she talked. The kind of touches that seemed innocent but lasted just a fraction of a second beyond friendly. I pushed the thought away. Vanessa was naturally flirty. That was just her personality. She'd be moving out soon anyway, once she found a marketing position at one of the agencies downtown she'd been interviewing with. 2 weeks later, I came home early from a client meeting that got canceled. I'd texted Derek but got no response, which wasn't weird. He often got absorbed in code and ignored his phone. I walked into our living room and froze. They were on our couch. Not just sitting close. Vanessa was practically in his lap, her hand on his chest, both of them laughing at something on his phone. The moment they saw me, they sprang apart like teenagers caught by their parents. "Jess, you're home early," Derek stammered, his face flushing red. "We were just looking at memes," Vanessa added quickly, but her smile had that edge to it. That knowing look she'd given me 1,000 times growing up when she knew she'd crossed a line but didn't care. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but instead I just stood there, my work bag sliding off my shoulder onto the floor. "I texted you," was all I managed to say. Derek grabbed his phone, made a show of checking it. "Oh man, sorry babe." Had it on silent. The explanation was reasonable. The situation was explainable. But something in my gut twisted, and I absolutely knew, that what I'd walked in on was the middle of something, not the beginning. Over the next month, I became a detective in my own life. I started noticing everything. The way Vanessa would volunteer to pick up Derek's dry cleaning, how she'd suddenly developed an interest in craft beer, Derek's biggest hobby, and would ask him to take her to different breweries to educate her palate. The inside jokes that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. I checked his phone once, hating myself for it, but found nothing. They were too smart for obvious text trails. Instead, I found deleted call logs. Just the fact that calls had been deleted, not who they were with. When I confronted Derek about it, he said it was probably a glitch. Or maybe he'd deleted some spam calls without thinking about it. Then came the night that shattered everything. We were supposed to have dinner with my parents in Lake Oswego, just Derek and me. Vanessa had plans with her grad school friends. But an hour before we were supposed to leave, Derek said he felt sick. Food poisoning from lunch, maybe? He looked miserable, told me to go without him. He'd just sleep it off. I felt guilty leaving him. but my mom had made her famous pot roast specifically because Derek loved it. I promised to bring him back leftovers and headed out. Dinner dragged on longer than expected. My dad wanted to show me his new workshop setup in the garage, and my mom kept pressing me about wedding venue options. By the time I left, it was almost 10 o'clock. I texted Derek that I was on my way home with food, but again, no response. I figured he was asleep. That made sense if he wasn't feeling well. I used my key quietly, not wanting to wake him. The house was dark, except for a dim light coming from our bedroom. As I walked down the hallway, I heard sounds that made my blood run cold. Laughter. Her laughter. And then his voice, low and intimate in a way that was meant only for me. I stood outside my own bedroom door, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the Tupperware container of pot roast my mom had packed. Part of me wanted to run, to pretend I'd never come home, to preserve the illusion just a little bit longer. But I didn't run. I opened that door. They were in my bed, under my grandmother's quilt that I'd spent months restoring. Vanessa's clothes were scattered across the floor I'd vacuumed that morning. Derek's shirt, the one I'd ironed for him the day before, was draped over my nightstand. The scene froze like a photograph. Vanessa's eyes went wide, but not with shame, with something worse. A flicker of triumph before she rearranged her features into shock. Derek scrambled up, grabbing for his boxers, saying my name over and over like an incantation that could undo what I was seeing. I didn't cry. Not then. I just stood there watching them panic, watching my sister, my own sister, try to cover herself with my sheets. And I felt something inside me go very cold and very quiet. "Get out," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Flat, empty. "Jess, please let me explain." Derek started. "Both of you. Get out of my house." Vanessa grabbed her clothes, moving faster than I'd ever seen her move. She tried to catch my eye as she pushed past me, but I looked through her like she was glass. Derek was babbling apologies, explanations, something about it being a mistake, a moment of weakness, how much he loved me. I walked into the kitchen and called my best friend Maya. "I need you to come over," I said. "And bring wine. A lot of wine." By the time Maya arrived 20 minutes later, Derek and Vanessa were gone. I'd stripped the bed, thrown the sheets in the trash, and was sitting on the kitchen floor with my back against the cabinets, still holding that container of pot roast. That's when I finally cried. Not pretty tears, but the ugly, gasping kind that feel like they're tearing you apart from the inside. Maya held me while I sobbed out the whole story, and when I was done, she said the words that would change everything. "You know what Vanessa's biggest obsession has always been, right? That actor she's been in love with since high school?" I looked up at her, confused about where she was going with this. Maya's eyes had a dangerous gleam. Brandon Cole? She has posters, follows his every move, probably has fan fiction saved on her laptop. What if there was a way to make this hurt her the way she hurt you? And just like that, through my tears and devastation, a seed of an idea began to form. Brandon Cole wasn't just some actor Vanessa casually liked. He was her entire personality for years. Growing up, our shared bedroom had been a shrine to him. Posters covering every inch of her side of the wall, magazine cutouts, even a life-size cardboard stand-up she'd saved 3 months of allowance to buy. She'd seen every movie he'd ever been in, some of them dozens of times. She ran a fan account on Twitter with over 50,000 followers. When he got engaged to that model back in 2019, Vanessa had called in sick to work and spent the entire day in bed eating ice cream. "You can't be serious," I said to Maya, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand. "Brandon Cole is one of the biggest actors in Hollywood. He doesn't even know people like us exist." Maya pulled out her phone, scrolling through something. "Actually, I've been following this story. He and that model split up last year, and according to the tabloids, he's been keeping a really low profile. But here's the thing. Remember my cousin Alexis who works in PR in Los Angeles?" I nodded, not seeing where this was going. She mentioned a few months ago that her firm represents some major celebrities, and they're always looking for ways to humanize their clients, make them relatable. What if Brandon Cole needs a good PR story right now? What if we could offer him one? Maya, you're talking about approaching a famous actor with some scheme to fake date me for revenge against my sister. That's insane! Not a fake date, Maya said, her eyes getting that manic sparkle she got when she was really onto something. What if it was real? What if you actually got to know him? Look, I'm not saying it's guaranteed to work, but what's the worst that happens? You spend the next few months trying something bold instead of wallowing while Vanessa and Derek play happy couple? The mention of their names made my stomach turn. They're probably together right now, planning how to break the news to everyone, making themselves the victims somehow. Exactly. Which is why you need to be 10 steps ahead. Maya grabbed my hands. Let me reach out to Alexis. Just to see if there's any possibility. You don't have to commit to anything. I should have said no. The rational part of my brain knew this was absurd. But the other part, the part that had just watched my sister betray me in the worst possible way, wanted to burn everything down. Okay, I heard myself say. Make the call. 3 days later, I was on a flight to Los Angeles. I'd told my parents I needed space to process the breakup. They knew about Derek's betrayal, but not Vanessa's involvement. I'd only told them he'd cheated, leaving out the devastating detail of who with. My mom had been sympathetic, my dad angry, both of them saying I deserved better. If only they knew the whole truth. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. Vanessa had been blowing up my phone with texts I refused to read. Derek had left a 5-minute voicemail that I'd deleted without listening to. I'd moved out of the house and was staying in Maya's spare room, having told Derek through Maya's boyfriend that he had 1 week to find somewhere else to live, or I'd sell the place out from under him. Alexis met me at a trendy coffee shop in West Hollywood. She was exactly how I remembered from Maya's wedding 2 years ago. Polished, professional, with perfectly highlighted hair and designer sunglasses pushed up on her head. I have to admit, when Maya called me with this, I thought she'd lost her mind, Alexis said, stirring a matcha latte. But then I talked to Brandon's team, and the timing is actually interesting. My heart rate picked up. What do you mean? Brandon's been dealing with some image issues. His last movie tanked. He got caught in a few tabloid scandals that weren't even true. And his team has been trying to reshape his public persona. They want him to seem more grounded, less Hollywood. A genuine relationship with a normal person could actually be really valuable to them right now. But I am a normal person, I said. Why would he want to date someone like me? Alexis smiled. That's exactly the point. Look, I'm not promising anything, but his publicist agreed to a meeting. Just you, her, and Brandon. Low pressure. You tell your story, see if there's any chemistry, and if everyone feels good about it, we explore what a relationship might look like from a publicity standpoint. This feels like I'm prostituting myself for revenge. No, Alexis said firmly. This is 2 people meeting to see if there's a connection, with the understanding that if there is, it would be mutually beneficial. Brandon needs good press. You need to move on from a devastating betrayal. If you happen to like each other, why shouldn't you explore that? She made it sound almost reasonable. The meeting was set for the next afternoon at Brandon's house in the Hollywood Hills. Alexis coached me on the drive over, telling me to be myself, be honest about what happened. But don't come across as bitter or revenge-obsessed. If he asks why you're really doing this, what do you say? She quizzed me. That I'm ready to take a chance on something unexpected and see where it leads, I recited. Perfect. Remember, he's a person, not just a celebrity. He gets nervous. He has insecurities. He wants real connection. Treat him like you would any guy you're meeting for the first time. Easy to say when the guy didn't have millions of Instagram followers and a face that had been on every magazine cover in America. Brandon's house was stunning, all glass and modern architecture with a view of the city that made me understand why people moved to Los Angeles. A woman in her 40s with severe bangs and an expensive pantsuit met us at the door. This was Rachel Torres, Brandon's publicist. Jessica, lovely to meet you. Brandon's just finishing a call. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee? I asked for water, mostly to have something to do with my hands. Rachel led us to a living room that looked like it belonged in Architectural Digest, all clean lines and carefully curated art. And then Brandon Cole walked into the room, and my brain momentarily short-circuited. He was somehow better looking in person, which didn't seem fair. Tall, with dark hair that looked artfully messy, wearing jeans and a simple white t-shirt that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. But it was his eyes that caught me, warm and brown and tired in a way that photos never captured. "Hi," he said, and his voice was different than I expected. Less polished, more real. "You must be Jessica. I'm Brandon." I shook his hand, hyper-aware that Vanessa would literally murder someone to be in my position right now. "Nice to meet you." We sat down, and there was an awkward silence. Rachel jumped in with small talk about my flight, the weather, nothing important. Then Brandon leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and looked right at me. "So, Alexis told me some of your story. Your fiancé cheated on you with your sister. That's brutal. I'm sorry." The directness surprised me. "Thank you. It's been a rough few weeks. Rachel thinks meeting you could be good for my image," he said, and I appreciated that he wasn't pretending this was purely organic. "But I'm going to be honest. I'm tired of fake relationships and PR stunts. I did that once and it made me miserable. So if we're going to do this, I need it to be real, or at least have the potential to be real. Does that make sense?" I nodded, feeling something shift in the room. "I don't want to be fake either. I've had enough fakes to last a lifetime." "Tell me something true about yourself," Brandon said. "Something that has nothing to do with your ex or your sister or why you're here." I thought for a moment. "I collect vintage cookbooks. Not because I'm an amazing cook, but because I love reading the handwritten notes people leave in the margins. Little insights into their lives, their families. It makes me feel connected to people I'll never meet." Brandon smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "That's actually really cool. I collect vinyl records for the same reason. There's something about the physicality of it, the history." We talked for 2 hours. Somewhere in that conversation, Rachel and Alexis quietly excused themselves, and it was just us. He told me about the pressure of fame, the loneliness of never knowing who wanted him versus who wanted Brandon Cole, the celebrity. I told him about growing up in Vanessa's shadow, always feeling like the boring sister. When Alexis finally came, back to say we should wrap up, Brandon walked me to the door. "Would you like to have dinner tomorrow? Just us, no publicists, no agenda. I'd like to get to know you better." "I'd like that," I said, and meant it. As Alexis drove me back to my hotel, I realized something that should have terrified me, but instead felt like relief. I wasn't thinking about Derek at all. And Vanessa's face when she found out about this? That was just a bonus. Brandon picked me up the next evening in a regular Toyota SUV, no driver, no entourage. He wore a baseball cap pulled low and sunglasses even though the sun was setting. "The disguise look?" I asked as I climbed in. He grinned. "You'd be amazed how well it works. Most people don't expect to see me driving myself to Chipotle, so they just don't see me at all." "We're going to Chipotle?" "God, no. But I could if I wanted to. I'm taking you to this little Italian place in Santa Monica. The owner's family has been running it for 40 years. They don't care about celebrities. And the gnocchi will change your life." He wasn't wrong about the gnocchi. The restaurant was tucked away on a side street, small and intimate with maybe 10 tables total. The owner, an elderly woman named Rosa, kissed Brandon on both cheeks and called him Bambino before showing us to a corner table partially hidden by a wine rack. "So," Brandon said once we'd ordered, "I looked you up online last night. Hope that's not creepy?" My stomach dropped. "Find anything interesting?" "Your LinkedIn profile, which tells me you're good at marketing, your Instagram, which is private, and absolutely nothing scandalous. which in Hollywood terms makes you basically a unicorn. He paused. I didn't find anything about your sister or ex because I didn't know their names, and I'm not going to ask unless you want to tell me. I appreciated that more than he knew. What about you? Should I have Googled you? Probably not. Half of it's made up, the other half is taken out of context. I'd rather you get to know the real me if that's not too cheesy to say. Over wine and pasta, he told me about growing up in a small town in Ohio, how he'd moved to Los Angeles at 19 with $800 and a dream, spent years waiting tables and going to auditions before his first real break at 25. Now, at 32, he was trying to figure out who he was beyond the roles he played. It's weird, he said, twirling spaghetti on his fork. You spend your whole life working toward this thing, and then you get it, and you realize success doesn't fix the broken parts of you. It just makes them more visible. That might be the most relatable thing I've heard in weeks, I said. I spent years building what I thought was the perfect life, perfect relationship, perfect plans. Turns out it was all a house of cards. What hurts more? Brandon asked carefully. That he cheated, or that it was with your sister? No one had asked me that question yet. The sister part. If it had been a stranger, some girl from a bar, I could have convinced myself it was just physical, meaningless. But Vanessa knew exactly what she was taking from me. She watched me plan a wedding, helped me pick out centerpieces, and the whole time she was. I couldn't finish the sentence. Brandon reached across the table and squeezed my hand. People who betray you like that are broken in ways you can't fix. That's not on you. We stayed at that restaurant until Rosa started pointedly cleaning tables around us. Brandon paid despite my protests, and as we walked back to his car, he said, I have a premiere next week. Big Hollywood thing, red carpet, the works. My publicist wants me to bring a date, and I usually go alone because it's exhausting to explain that world to someone new. But would you want to come? You want me to walk the red carpet with you? The idea was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. I want to spend more time with you, he corrected. The red carpet is just part of the package. Fair warning, though. If you say yes, people will take photos. Tabloids will speculate. Your life will get a little chaotic for a while. I thought about Vanessa sitting in Portland, probably already moved into my house with Derek. When is it? Next Thursday. Then yes. I'll go with you. His smile was worth whatever chaos would follow. The next week became a whirlwind. Brandon's stylist, a tiny, fierce woman named Priya, took me shopping on Rodeo Drive for a dress. She pulled things I never would have chosen for myself. Elegant, sophisticated pieces that made me look like someone who belonged next to a movie star. You have great bone structure, Priya said, circling me critically as I stood in a fitting room wearing a midnight blue gown that hugged every curve. And you're not trying too hard, which is refreshing. Most of Brandon's dates show up looking like they're going to the Met Gala. He's had a lot of dates? I tried to keep my voice casual. Priya waved a hand. Publicity stuff mostly. You're the first one he's actually seemed excited about in years. Don't screw it up. No pressure then, she laughed. You'll be fine. Just be yourself. That's clearly what he likes. The night of the premiere, I stood in front of the mirror in my hotel room, barely recognizing myself. The dress was perfect. My hair was styled in loose waves, and a makeup artist had made me look like a better version of myself. Brandon had sent a car to pick me up, and when I arrived at his house, he was waiting outside in a perfectly tailored suit. Wow, he said, and the way he looked at me made my knees weak. You look incredible. You clean up pretty well yourself. In the car on the way to the premiere, Brandon held my hand. Okay, crash course in red carpet survival. We'll walk together, stop for photos when they ask, but I'll keep us moving. Reporters will shout questions, ignore anything too personal. Smile, stay close to me, and remember that we can leave whenever you want. Just say the word. How do you deal with this all the time? Honestly, I dissociate a little. It's like playing a character, red carpet Brandon, who smiles and waves. The real me is just trying not to trip. The premiere was at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood, and as we pulled up, I saw the crowds, the lights, the screaming fans behind barriers. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Hey," Brandon said softly, turning to face me. "You've got this. And I've got you." He stepped out first, then reached back to help me out of the car. The moment my heels hit the red carpet, camera flashes exploded like fireworks. It was overwhelming. The noise, the lights, people shouting Brandon's name, security guards forming a barrier between us and the crowd. Brandon kept his hand on the small of my back, steady and reassuring. We stopped for photos, and I did my best to smile naturally while feeling completely surreal. A reporter thrust a microphone toward us. "Brandon, who's your date tonight?" "This is Jessica," he said warmly. "Jessica, this is Chaos." "Chaos, Jessica," I laughed, and the photographer nearest us caught it. That photo would end up everywhere by morning. Me laughing, Brandon looking at me like I was the only person there. We made it through the press line and into the theater, where I could finally breathe. Brandon introduced me to his co-stars, all of whom were gracious and normal despite being people I'd only ever seen on screens. The movie was good, some action thriller where Brandon played a detective, but I barely absorbed it because I was hyper-aware of him sitting next to me in the dark. At the after-party, held at some exclusive club in West Hollywood, Brandon kept me close, introducing me to directors and producers and people whose names I'd only seen in credits. A few gave me curious looks, clearly wondering who I was and where I'd come from. But most were genuinely friendly. Around midnight, we snuck out a back exit and Brandon drove us to an In-N-Out burger. "This is my real premiere tradition," he said, ordering 2 double-doubles and fries. "The fancy party is for show. This is the actual celebration." We sat in the parking lot with the windows down, eating burgers and talking about the absurdity of the evening. My phone had been blowing up with texts, Maya freaking out over photos she'd already seen online, Alexis saying the press coverage was perfect, and several unknown numbers that I assumed were reporters who'd somehow gotten my information. There was also a text from my mom, Jessica Marie Wilson. "Why are you all over the internet with Brandon Cole? Call me immediately." "Uh-oh," I said, showing Brandon. "I might have forgotten to mention this to my parents." He laughed. "That's going to be a fun conversation." But there was one notification I didn't show him, a text from Vanessa that simply said, "Are you kidding me right now?" I turned my phone face down and smiled. The revenge was just beginning, and it tasted better than I'd ever imagined. The next morning, I woke up to my phone vibrating so aggressively it had fallen off the nightstand. Still groggy, I picked it up and immediately regretted it. 73 text messages. 42 missed calls. My social media had exploded overnight with follow requests and DMs from people I'd never met. But it was the headlines that made everything feel startlingly real. Brandon Cole steps out with mystery woman at premiere. Who is Jessica Wilson? Everything we know about Brandon Cole's new girlfriend. Brandon Cole's new romance, inside their red carpet debut. There were photos everywhere, us walking the carpet, me laughing at his joke, him looking at me during the movie. Some blogger had already found my LinkedIn and done a full breakdown of my life, including the fact that I'd recently ended an engagement. The comments section was a war zone of people either defending me or calling me a clout chaser. Maya's text came through, "Girl, you're trending on Twitter. Also, your Instagram went from 300 followers to 15,000 overnight. Also, call me." Before I could process any of it, my phone rang. My mother. "Hi, Mom. Jessica Marie, you have exactly 30 seconds to explain to me why I had to find out from my book club that my daughter is dating Brandon Cole." Barbara showed me. People magazine on her phone during our discussion of Where the Crawdads Sing. Do you know how humiliating that was? "I'm sorry. It all happened really fast. Your father nearly choked on his coffee when he saw the photos. And Vanessa called here at 7 in the morning, absolutely hysterical. What is going on?" The mention of Vanessa made my jaw clench. "What did she say?" "She was crying, saying something about you doing this to hurt her, that you knew how much she loved him." "Jessica, is this about Derek? Because revenge dating a celebrity seems like..." "Mom, I have to go. I'll call you later and explain everything, I promise." I hung up before she could respond, which I'd definitely hear about later. But I couldn't deal with defending my choices when I was still trying to understand them myself. Brandon texted, "Morning? Sorry about the media circus. Want to come over? I'll make breakfast and we can hide from the internet together." 20 minutes later, I was back at his house. He answered the door in sweatpants and a faded Ohio State t-shirt, hair messy from sleep, looking nothing like the polished movie star from last night. "So I'm guessing you've seen the headlines?" he said, leading me to his kitchen where he was making omelets. "It's hard to miss them. Your fans either love me or want me dead." "Yeah, that's pretty standard." He handed me a cup of coffee. For what it's worth, my publicist is thrilled. She said the photos are authentic and refreshing, which in PR speak means we didn't look like we hated each other. I sat on one of his counter stools watching him cook. "My sister texted me last night, and apparently called my parents freaking out this morning." Brandon flipped an omelet expertly. "The one who—" "Yeah, that sister. What did she say?" I pulled up Vanessa's text and showed him. "Are you kidding me right now?" He read it, then looked at me carefully. "Can I ask you something and I need you to be honest?" My stomach nodded. "Okay. Is this us, whatever we're doing? Is this about hurting her?" Because I meant what I said about not wanting something fake. I'd known this question was coming, but I still wasn't sure how to answer it. At first, maybe. When Maya suggested meeting you, part of me definitely thought about how much it would kill Vanessa to see me with someone she's idolized since she was 14. I paused, meeting his eyes. "But then I actually met you, and you were real and funny and kind, and I forgot about her completely. So honestly, I don't know anymore. Maybe it started as revenge, but what I feel when I'm with you has nothing to do with her." Brandon was quiet for a moment, plating the omelets. Then he said, "Okay, I can work honestly. You're not mad? That you're human and wanted to hurt someone who devastated you?" "No," he set a plate in front of me. "But moving forward, I need to know that you're here because you want to be, not because of what it does to anyone else." "I want to be here," I said, and realized I meant it completely. We spent the day hiding from the world, watching movies on his couch and ignoring our phones. It felt normal in a way nothing had felt since I'd walked in on Derek and Vanessa. Brandon told me about his next movie, a period drama filming in New York. I told him about the job I'd left in Portland, how I'd been working remotely but needed to figure out my next move. "You could stay in LA?" he suggested casually. "I know some people in marketing could make introductions." That's a big decision to make for someone I've known less than 2 weeks. True. But it's not just about me, right? Fresh start, new city, better weather than Portland. Just think about it. Around 7, his doorbell rang. Brandon checked the security camera and groaned. "It's my brother Tyler. I forgot he was coming over for dinner." "Should I hide?" "No, you should meet him. He's annoying but harmless." Tyler Cole was 2 years younger than Brandon, worked in finance, and had the same good looks but without the Hollywood polish. He walked in, saw me, and grinned. "Oh man, you're real." Brandon said he met someone, but I thought it was another publicist setup. "Ty, this is Jessica." Jessica, my idiot brother. We ordered Thai food, and Tyler interrogated me mercilessly but kindly, where I was from, what I did, how I'd met Brandon. When Brandon went to grab more beer from the garage, Tyler leaned closer. I haven't seen him like this in years. Usually his girlfriends last about 3 weeks before he gets bored or they get weird about the fame thing. But he actually seems happy with you. "We barely know each other," I said. "Yeah, but you're not taking selfies with him for Instagram right now, so you're already ahead of the curve." When Brandon came back, I excused myself to use the bathroom and checked my phone. More messages from Vanessa, each one progressively more unhinged. This is so pathetic. "You're using him to get back at me. Everyone can see what you're doing. He's going to realize you're boring and drop you. I can't believe you'd stoop this low." And then, the one that made my blood run cold. "Derek and I are engaged. We're getting married next month. I wanted you to hear it from me first." I stared at the screen, waiting for the pain to hit, for the devastation to crash over me like it had that night in the bedroom. But instead, I felt nothing. Maybe a twinge of sadness for the time I'd wasted, but no heartbreak. No desperate wish to have him back. They deserved each other. I walked back to the living room where Brandon and Tyler were arguing about basketball. Brandon looked up, saw my face, and immediately stood. "What happened?" I showed him the text. He read it, his jaw tightening. "That's fast," Tyler said, reading over his shoulder. "Like, suspiciously fast." "They probably got engaged the day after I caught them," I said. "This is just her way of trying to make me feel like she won." "Did it work?" Brandon asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. "No. Actually, I think I want to send them a gift." Both brothers looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Hear me out," I said, a plan forming. "What if we beat them to it?" "Beat them to what?" Brandon asked slowly. I looked at him. This man I'd known for less than 2 weeks, but who'd somehow become the most real thing in my life. "What if we got engaged first?" The room went completely silent. "You're joking," Tyler said. But Brandon was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Am I? I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe I am. This is crazy, right?" "Completely insane," Brandon agreed. But he was smiling. "Tell me more about this crazy plan." Tyler excused himself after another beer, mumbling something about needing to leave us to our insanity. Once he was gone, Brandon and I sat on opposite ends of his couch, the weight of what I'd suggested hanging between us. "So," Brandon said finally, "you want to get engaged to spite your sister?" "When you say it like that, it sounds terrible. How should I say it?" I pulled my knees up to my chest. "I don't know. Maybe this is the worst idea I've ever had. You can forget I said anything. Jessica, look at me." He waited until I did. "I'm not saying no. I'm just trying to understand what you're actually asking for here." "I'm asking if you'd be willing to get engaged, for real or fake or somewhere in between before Vanessa gets married. So she has to watch me be happy while she's playing house with my leftovers. And after? What happens when the revenge is complete?" That was the question I didn't have an answer to. "I guess we figure it out as we go?" Brandon ran a hand through his hair. "This is objectively insane. We've known each other for 12 days. "I know. My publicist would have a stroke. Probably. Your family would think you've lost your mind. They already do." He laughed, shaking his head. "Why does part of me actually want to do this? Because you're tired of fake relationships and at least this one is honestly crazy? Or because I actually like you and this is just an excuse to lock you down before you realize you could do better?" The vulnerability in his voice made my chest tight. "Brandon, let me finish." He moved closer, taking my hand. Since my career took off, every relationship I've had has been transactional. Someone wants the lifestyle, the access, the Instagram photos, or it's arranged by publicists who think we'd look good together. And I've been going through the motions for so long that I forgot what it feels like to actually want someone. "You want me?" My voice came out smaller than intended. "From the moment you told me about your vintage cookbook collection, yeah. You're real, Jessica. You're messy and hurting and figuring things out. And you don't look at me like I'm a prize to be won. You look at me like I'm just a person. You are just a person." "Exactly." He squeezed my hand. "So here's my counter-proposal. We get engaged, but we do it right. Not some quickie courthouse thing, but a real engagement with time to plan. 3 months minimum before a wedding. That gives us time to figure out if this is actually real or just adrenaline and revenge." 3 months, I repeated. "And we tell people the truth, that we know it's fast, but we're going for it anyway. No pretending we've been secretly dating for years. Your publicist will definitely have a stroke. Rachel has survived worse. So what do you say? Want to get engaged to a guy you barely know to spite your sister and maybe find actual happiness along the way?" I should have said no. Every rational bone in my body screamed that this was reckless and impulsive and destined for disaster. But looking at Brandon, at this man who somehow saw past my damage to something worth keeping, I couldn't find a single reason to walk away. Okay, let's do it. His smile was brilliant. Yeah? Yeah, let's get engaged. Right now? Well, you need a ring first. And probably we should plan something better than sitting on your couch. Brandon stood up, suddenly energized. Give me 2 days. I'm going to do this properly. True to his word, 2 days later, Brandon picked me up wearing a suit, looking nervous in a way I'd never seen him. He drove us up into the Hollywood Hills as the sun began to set, pulling up to a scenic overlook that gave us a view of the entire city sprawling below, lights beginning to twinkle in the dusk. This is where I came the night before my first real audition, he said, helping me out of the car. I was terrified I'd blow it, that I'd be waiting tables forever. But I sat up here and thought, even if I fail, at least I'm trying. At least I'm alive. Did you get the part? No, failed spectacularly. But I got the next one, and the one after that. He turned to face me fully. What I'm saying is, this probably won't be perfect. We might fail spectacularly, but at least we're trying. Before I could respond, he was down on one knee, pulling out a ring box. My heart hammered against my ribs. Jessica Wilson, I know this is crazy. I know we should probably date for a year like normal people. But nothing about us has been normal from the start, so why start now? He opened the box, revealing a simple but stunning diamond ring. I want to see where this goes. I want to take the risk. Will you marry me? I looked at him, really looked at him. At the man who'd taken a chance on meeting a stranger, who'd been honest about his loneliness, who made me laugh and feel seen in ways Derek never had. Was this revenge? Maybe it started that way. But standing here, watching the city light up below us, I realized it had become something else entirely. Yes, I said. Yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring on my finger and stood, pulling me into a kiss that felt like jumping off a cliff and learning to fly at the same time. We stayed on that overlook until the stars came out, making plans and laughing at the absurdity of what we'd just done. Brandon wanted to announce it properly, maybe through a social media post that looked natural. I wanted to tell my parents in person before they saw it online. When do you want to tell your sister? He asked. After we've told everyone else. I want her to find out with the rest of the world. That's cold. She stole my fiancé and got engaged within weeks. I think I'm entitled to a little cold. Brandon kissed my forehead. Remind me never to cross you. We decided to fly to Portland the next weekend so I could tell my parents face to face. Brandon had a few days clear in his schedule, and he wanted to meet them properly, not as tabloid fodder, but as the man planning to marry their daughter. The night before we left, I posted a single photo to Instagram, just the ring on my hand, the city lights blurred in the background. The caption was simple. Took a chance on something unexpected. Within minutes, my phone exploded. Maya called screaming. Alexis sent a string of celebration emojis. My mother called, demanding to know if the rumors were true. But it was Brandon's post that really sent the internet into a frenzy. A photo of us at the overlook, his arms around me, both of us laughing. His caption, she said yes. Sometimes the best things in life are the ones you never saw coming. Jessica Wilson, can't wait to spend forever figuring this out with you. The comments section went insane. Entertainment news sites picked it up within the hour. By morning, we were on the front page of every celebrity gossip outlet. Brandon Cole engaged to girlfriend. Jessica Wilson after whirlwind romance. Fast love, inside Brandon Cole's quick engagement. Brandon Cole is off the market, meet his fiancé. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My stomach sank as I opened it. Congratulations on your engagement. We should all have dinner when you're in Portland. It would mean a lot to me. Vanessa, I showed Brandon, who was packing for our trip. She's playing nice, he observed. She's planning something. Vanessa doesn't do nice when she's been upstaged. Good thing we're ready for her then. But as I stared at that text, unease crept up my spine. Vanessa had always been 3 steps ahead. Always knew exactly which buttons to push. Getting engaged was one thing. Dealing with my family face to face, with her and Derek in the same city, was going to be another level entirely. What if this backfires? I asked quietly. Brandon stopped packing and came to sit beside me. Then we deal with it together. That's what being engaged means, right? We're a team now. A team built on revenge and impulse decisions. Also mutual respect, genuine attraction, and really excellent taste in burgers. He tilted my chin up. Hey, we're going to be fine. And if we're not, at least we'll crash and burn spectacularly. I laughed despite my nerves. That's very reassuring. I'm a giver. As we finished packing for Portland, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a trap. Vanessa had always been a master manipulator, and now we were heading straight into her territory, engaged to her ultimate fantasy. Whatever she was planning, I needed to be ready. Because this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about protecting something real that had somehow grown from the most unlikely circumstances, and I'd be damned if I let her destroy it. The flight to Portland felt surreal. Brandon wore his baseball cap disguise, and we'd booked first class under his assistant's name to avoid attention. Still, I caught a flight attendant doing a double take, and a teenager definitely snapped a photo when she thought we weren't looking. Does it ever feel normal? I asked as we descended into PDX. The attention? Not really. You just learn to live with it like background noise. He squeezed my hand. Nervous about seeing your parents? Terrified. My dad's going to interrogate you like you're joining the CIA, and my mom's going to cry and ask why we can't have a long engagement. What about Vanessa? I'd been avoiding thinking about her. She texted again this morning. Said she's so happy for us and wants to help plan the wedding. Brandon raised an eyebrow. That's rich. She's never been happy for me a day in her life. She's definitely plotting something. My parents lived in a ranch-style house in Lake Oswego, the same house I'd grown up in. My dad's truck sat in the driveway next to my mom's sedan, and I felt like a teenager again, bringing home a boyfriend for inspection. Except this boyfriend was a famous actor I was apparently marrying after 2 weeks. Mom opened the door before we even knocked, pulling me into a hug that squeezed the air from my lungs. Jessica Marie, you have given me heart palpitations. I had to take an extra blood pressure pill. Hi, Mom. This is Brandon. She released me and studied him with the intensity of a jeweler examining a diamond. Brandon Cole, in my house. Engaged to my daughter. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Wilson. Brandon extended his hand, turning on that movie star charm. Thank you for having me. She ignored his hand and hugged him too. If you hurt my daughter, famous or not, I will make your life a living nightmare. Mom, that's fair, Brandon said, looking genuinely amused. I'd expect nothing less. Dad appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. Robert Wilson was a retired high school principal who'd perfected the art of the intimidating stare over 30 years of dealing with teenage delinquents. He gave Brandon a once-over that would have made most men squirm. So you're the movie star. I'm the guy who wants to marry your daughter, sir. Dad crossed his arms. Backyard. You and me. Now, Dad, seriously? I protested. It's okay, Brandon said, following my father outside like a man walking to his execution. Mom pulled me into the kitchen, where she'd already laid out coffee and her famous lemon bars. Okay, spill everything. How did this happen? I gave her the abbreviated version. Meeting through a mutual friend in LA, hitting it off immediately, the connection being undeniable. I left out the part about it starting as revenge against Vanessa. 2 weeks, Jessica. You've known him 2 weeks. I know it sounds crazy. It doesn't sound crazy, it is crazy. She sat down heavily. After Derek, I thought you'd be more careful. And now you're rushing into an engagement with someone who lives in a completely different world? I'm not rushing because I'm running from Derek. I'm doing this because Brandon makes me happy in a way Derek never did, or because Vanessa destroyed your life and this is your way of hitting back. I should have known she'd figure it out. My mother had always been too perceptive for her own good. She told you. She called me 3 days ago, sobbing, saying you were only doing this to hurt her. That you knew how much she loved Brandon Cole. Mom's voice was careful. Is there truth to that? I looked out the window where Dad and Brandon were talking, both of them looking surprisingly relaxed. Maybe at first. But Mom, he's good. He's kind and real and he sees me. Not the version of me I pretend to be, but the actual messy person underneath. And you love him? Did I? We'd never said those words. Everything had moved too fast for declarations. But sitting in my childhood kitchen, watching him laugh at something my dad said, I realized the answer was starting to form. I think I could. I think maybe I already do. Mom sighed, reaching across to squeeze my hand. Then I'll support you. But Jessica, be careful. The media, the attention, the pressure of his world, it can destroy relationships. And if this doesn't work out, then I'll have learned something. But I have to try, Mom. I can't live my life afraid of getting hurt again. The back door opened and Brandon and Dad came back in, both looking surprisingly pleased with themselves. Your young man here knows his way around a carburetor, Dad announced. We're going to work on my Mustang tomorrow. I didn't know you knew about cars, I said to Brandon. Grew up fixing them with my dad. It's good meditation. Mom invited Brandon to stay for dinner, and we spent the evening in surprising normalcy, eating pot roast, looking at embarrassing childhood photos of me, Brandon charming my parents without seeming like he was trying. He told stories about movie sets that had them laughing, asked my dad about his years as principal, complimented Mom's cooking with genuine enthusiasm. For a few hours, I could almost forget about Vanessa and Derek and the complicated revenge plot that had brought us together. Then Mom's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression shifted. Vanessa's asking if she can stop by. She says she wants to congratulate you both in person. The warm bubble popped. Brandon looked at me, letting me make the call. Tell her to come, I said. Might as well get this over with. 20 minutes later, Vanessa walked through the door, and I braced myself for battle. She looked perfect as always. Long dark hair, designer jeans, that confident smile that had always made me feel like the plain sister. But there was something different in her eyes. Something calculating. Jess. She pulled me into a hug that felt like a performance. I'm so happy for you. And Brandon. She turned to him with an expression I'd seen 1,000 times, pure adoration mixed with hunger. I can't believe you're real. I've been such a huge fan for years. Thanks, Brandon said smoothly, keeping his arm around my waist. Jessica's told me a lot about you. All good things, I hope? Her laugh was musical, practiced. Sure, I said flatly. An awkward silence fell. Mom jumped in with offers of coffee that Vanessa accepted, and we all moved to the living room. Derek wasn't with her, I noticed. Interesting choice, so wedding plans, Vanessa said brightly. Have you set a date? Not yet, Brandon answered. We're thinking about this spring. Spring is beautiful. Derek and I are doing ours in 6 weeks. A small ceremony. Just family. She looked directly at me. You'll come, won't you? It would mean everything. The audacity was breathtaking. You want me at your wedding? Of course. You're my sister. And I know things have been complicated, but I really think we can move past all that. Derek and I are so happy, and you're clearly happy with Brandon, so why hold on to old hurt? Old hurt, I repeated slowly. You mean the hurt from 2 months ago when I found you in my bed with my fiancé? Mom gasped. Dad's head snapped up. Vanessa's perfect smile wavered. You said Derek cheated, Mom said, looking between us. You didn't say, I didn't want to ruin your relationship with Vanessa, I said, my voice cold. But since she's here playing the reconciliation card, let's be honest. She slept with Derek while living in my house, then got engaged to him before the sheets were even washed. Jessica, that's not fair, Vanessa said, and she actually had tears in her eyes. It wasn't planned. We fell in love. These things happen. In my bed? I stood up. You fell in love in my bed? Maybe I should go, Vanessa said, standing too. No, stay, I said. Since you're so invested in my wedding plans, I have something to ask you. Brandon touched my arm gently. Jess, you don't have to. Vanessa, would you be my maid of honor? The room went silent. Everyone stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Vanessa's face was a mix of confusion and suspicion. What? You wanted to be involved in my wedding. You wanted us to move past things. So be my maid of honor. Help me plan every detail of my marriage to your celebrity crush. Stand next to me while I marry the man you've fantasized about since high school. I could see her calculating, trying to figure out the trap. If she said no, she'd look petty and vindictive. If she said yes, she'd have to watch me live out her dream while pretending to be supportive. I'd be honored, she finally said, her smile not reaching her eyes. Sisters should stand together. Perfect. I'll send you the details. After Vanessa left, Dad poured himself a whiskey. That girl has always been trouble. Robert, Mom warned, but she didn't disagree. Brandon pulled me aside while my parents argued about family loyalty. That was either brilliant or insane. Why not both? Having her as your maid of honor means she'll be involved in everything. Every decision, every plan. Are you sure you want her that close? Keep your enemies closer, right? I leaned into him. Besides, I want her to watch every single moment. I want her to see what she can't have. Remind me never to get on your bad side. That night, lying in my childhood bedroom with Brandon in the guest room down the hall, I stared at the ceiling and wondered if I'd just made a terrible mistake. Giving Vanessa access to my wedding was like handing her ammunition. But something about the look on her face when she'd agreed, that flash of trapped calculation, made me think maybe, just maybe, I was finally winning. The next 3 months were a whirlwind that made my head spin. Brandon had to fly to New York for filming, so I split my time between LA and the set, slowly building a life that felt both foreign and right. I'd landed a marketing position at a boutique firm in Los Angeles, something that felt like mine rather than part of a life I'd left behind. And through it all, Vanessa played her role perfectly. She showed up to every dress fitting with a smile plastered on her face, complimenting choices while her eyes betrayed her envy. She helped design invitations, coordinate with vendors, and plan the bridal shower that Brandon's publicist insisted we have for press purposes. Every interaction was a carefully choreographed performance where we both pretended this was normal. "What do you think of this one?" I asked during a fitting at an exclusive bridal boutique in Beverly Hills, stepping out in a stunning lace gown that hugged every curve. Vanessa's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "It's beautiful. Brandon will love it." The seamstress pinned the hem while I watched my sister in the mirror. She looked perfect as always, but there were cracks forming, dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide, a tension in her shoulders that hadn't been there before. "How are wedding plans going for you?" I asked innocently. 6 weeks came up fast. "We postponed," she said quickly. "Just until the fall. Wanted more time to plan." "Or because Derek realized who he's actually marrying." Her eyes flashed. "Excuse me?" I stepped down from the platform, moving closer. "Come on, Vanessa. We're alone. You can drop the supportive sister act. I don't know what you're talking about. You're miserable. Anyone with eyes can see it. You got the guy, got my house, got everything you wanted. So why do you look like you haven't slept in weeks?" For a moment, her mask slipped entirely. "Because you won," she hissed. "You always land on your feet. Perfect Jessica, who everyone loves, who gets the happy ending even after I—" She stopped herself. "Even after you what?" "Destroyed my life? Stole the man I was going to marry?" I kept my voice level. "Here's the thing, Vanessa. You didn't want Derek. You wanted to win. You wanted to prove you could take something from me. But now you're stuck with him, and he's just as boring and predictable as he always was, isn't he? At least he's real," she shot back. "Brandon's going to figure out you're using him, that this whole thing is just elaborate revenge. Maybe it started that way," I admitted, "but I actually love him. Can you say the same about Derek?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. The wedding was set for a private estate in Malibu, small and intimate despite the media circus surrounding it. 200 guests, mostly Brandon's industry friends and my small circle. Rachel had negotiated exclusive photo rights with a major magazine to control the narrative, which meant we'd actually have some privacy during the ceremony itself. The night before, Brandon found me on the balcony of our hotel suite staring at the ocean. "Cold feet?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. Just thinking about how insane this all is. A few months ago, I was planning a completely different wedding to a completely different person. Regrets? I turned to face him. Not even a little, you? I'm marrying a woman who proposed to me as a revenge plot and somehow became the best thing in my life. How could I regret that? We're either really brave or really stupid. Probably both. He kissed me softly. Ready to make your sister stand up there and watch? So ready. The wedding day arrived with perfect California sunshine. I got ready in a suite with Maya and 3 other bridesmaids, but Vanessa was notably late. She finally showed up an hour before the ceremony, looking pale and shaken. Where have you been? Maya demanded. We've been calling you. I'm here now, Vanessa said, avoiding eye contact. Something was off, but I didn't have time to investigate. The photographer needed shots, my hair needed final touches, and suddenly it was time. Dad met me outside the ceremony space, tears already in his eyes. You look beautiful, sweetheart. Thanks, Dad. Is this what you really want? He asked quietly. Because it's not too late to... I've never been more sure of anything. The music started, and my bridesmaids began their walk. Vanessa went last, her face a mask of composure that I knew was costing her everything. Then it was my turn, and Dad and I started down the aisle. Brandon stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored tux, his brother Tyler beside him as best man. But it was Brandon's face that made my chest tight, the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the world, like none of the guests or cameras or spectacle mattered. Just us. The ceremony was beautiful and surprisingly emotional. We'd written our own vows, and when Brandon spoke about taking chances on the unexpected and finding home in the most unlikely places, I saw several people crying, including my mother. When it was my turn, I looked directly at him. 3 months ago, my life fell apart. I thought I knew what happiness looked like, what love was supposed to be. And then I met you and realized I'd been settling for a shadow of something real. You see me, all of me, even the messy, broken parts, and you stay. You make me laugh, you challenge me, you make me want to be brave. So yes, this is fast and crazy and everyone thinks we're insane, but I'd rather have one real day with you than a lifetime of comfortable lies. I didn't look at Vanessa, but I felt her presence like a weight. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the officiant said. You may kiss your bride. Brandon pulled me close, and when he kissed me, everything else disappeared. The revenge, the hurt, the complicated path that had brought us here, none of it mattered. This was real. The reception was everything a celebrity wedding should be. Elegant, entertaining, photographed from every angle. But the moment that made it all worth it came during the maid of honor speech. Vanessa stood up, champagne glass in hand, and I watched her struggle with what to say. The room was silent, waiting. Jessica and I have been through a lot, she finally said, her voice tight. We haven't always seen eye to eye. But seeing her today, seeing how happy she is with Brandon, I can't deny that she's found something special. She paused, and I saw her swallow hard. I hope I find that someday too. To Jessica and Brandon, it was the closest thing to an admission of defeat I'd ever get from her. Later, during the dancing, Derek showed up. He wasn't invited, but hotel security had let him in thinking he was a guest. He found me near the bar looking drunk and desperate. Jess, we need to talk. Brandon appeared instantly at my side. I think you should leave. You don't know her like I do, Derek slurred. This is all a show. She's just trying to hurt Vanessa. Even if that were true, I said calmly. What does that say about you? That you're so forgettable I had to create an elaborate scheme to get over you? You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was wasting 3 years on you. Security! 2 large men escorted Derek out while guests whispered and phones emerged to capture the drama. Rachel would have a field day with damage control, but I couldn't bring myself to care. You okay? Brandon asked. Perfect. Dance with me? He led me to the floor, pulling me close as a slow song played. Around us, guests swayed and laughed, but I only saw him. So, Mrs. Cole? He murmured against my ear. How does it feel? Like coming home, I said honestly. Like everything before this was just practice for getting here. Think your sister's learned her lesson? I glanced over and saw Vanessa sitting alone at a table, watching us with an expression that was finally, genuinely, broken. I think she's learning that taking something from someone else never fills the empty spaces inside you. Deep thoughts for a wedding reception. I'm allowed. I just married a movie star. You married a guy from Ohio who's really good at pretending? No, I corrected. I married someone who's finally brave enough to be real. Months later, I'd hear through Mom that Vanessa and Derek broke up. That she'd moved to Seattle to start over. That she'd finally gone to therapy. That she'd written me a letter I never opened. Some wounds don't need to be picked at. They just need to be left to scar. Brandon's next movie was a massive hit, and suddenly we were more famous than ever. But we handled it together, buying a house with a big backyard in Santa Monica, adopting a rescue dog named Chaos, building a life that was ours and no one else's. Maya was right that day in my kitchen when this all started. I'd landed on my feet. But not because of revenge or spite or proving something to Vanessa. I'd landed on my feet because I'd finally learned the difference between what I thought I wanted and what I actually needed. And what I needed was standing in my kitchen 2 years later, making terrible pancakes and singing off-key, calling me to come try his latest disaster. What I needed was someone who saw through the revenge plot to the scared, hurt woman underneath and chose to stay anyway. What I needed was someone who made me laugh at my own ridiculousness and loved me for it. Vanessa didn't steal my fiancé. She freed me to find my actual future. And yeah, I made her watch every second of it. But in the end, the best revenge wasn't making her jealous. It was being genuinely, completely, messily happy. And I was. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.